Let's start with prayer, because that's a good thing to start with. So, bow your heads. Lord Jesus, I thank you for tonight. God, I pray that you would bless this time. God, I pray that you would speak through me to these kids tonight, God, and to the staff members and everybody here, Lord. God, I pray that you would open our hearts to hear what you have to say to us. And God, let not one person leave tonight unchanged by your word, Lord. I thank you for listening to my prayer. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about Brian Head Welch. He is a former and current lead guitarist for the band called Korn. Who here knows what the band Korn is?
Yes.
Show of hands. Okay. I got an ecstatic yes up front here. So, crazy, awesome rock band, but they are a very so it's called like new metal, and it's very actually like dark lyrics and like crazy just. Okay, so you think of somebody that God's going to use, you never think of, these guys. But let's go ahead and read real quick. I'm going to recap kind of Exodus 3, 10 through 14. It says, God's talking to Moses at the burning bush. We talked about that this morning. And he's talking to Moses, he says, "So go, I'm sending you to the Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Moses goes, "But God, but, like a tugboat." And just, it's got all these buts, and, God's just like, you don't have any excuses left. I've solved everything for you. And so Moses is left saying, "All right, I'll go." He says, "Suppose that I do go, and they don't believe me that God, because in this time and in this place, these people had multiple gods and all sorts of different types of gods, and they had a God for everything, and this is the one true God." So all right, if I say God spoke to me, who are you, what's your name? He goes, "I am." So Moses gets his phone out. On my phone. He gets his phone out and he goes, "I space am space." He's waiting. And God's like, "What?" He's like, I am what?" And God goes, "That's it. I am." See, I think we read through this a lot and don't realize exactly what God's saying here when he says, "I am who I am." This is what you are to say to the Israelites: "I am has sent me to you." Why would God leave that blank there? Why would yes, you have an idea?
Because he didn't want to answer it.
What's that?
Because he didn't want to answer it.
Because he didn't want to answer? I think, what do you got for us?
God is everything.
God is everything. Boom, got it. Nail on the head right there. So everything that you are not, God can be for you. Any excuse you have, God can answer with, "Okay, but I'm going to be your strength. I'm going to be your courage. I'm going to be your, I'm going to be whatever you need to be to do what I'm asking you to do." See, God won't call you to do something and tell you to do something without giving you exactly what you need to follow through with that obedience. So Moses is out of excuses. God's going to be everything he needs him to be. And he goes and is obedient. I've got, this Bible's way too heavy and it might tip this over, so if it does, I apologize. Alright. So, Brian Head Welch. They started the band Korn in 1993. Got into the early 2000s, and they were super successful. They had all these golden records or whatever, and platinum and all this other stuff, and sold millions of copies, and was just living high on life. The music was awesome, the touring, they were partying, they had the women, they had the drugs, they had the classic rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and he was just having the time of his life. He was married, had a beautiful baby girl, and he comes home from tour one time to find his house full of skinheads. And his daughter's there. And his wife is there cheating on him. He's like, what the heck, man? Skinheads, for those of you who don't know, okay, I'll go back real quick. So like racist, neo-Nazi type, like just hardcore, into the speed and the drugs and, all that stuff and racist type, where they call them skinheads because they shaved all their head. So if you didn't know what that is, that's kind of what skinheads is. But basically, these thugs, gangsters, bad, just really, really, really bad dudes. And that was like a huge wake-up call for him, right? I mean, if you come home from touring and to find your wife cheating on you and your daughter's, potentially a victim to these guys that you have no idea who they are, but you just know they're dangerous and they're bad dudes and they're no good. You're like, oh. Start looking back at your life and like, okay. All right. What do I do? What do I do? Because he loved his daughter. I mean, he loved his wife too, but she was cheating on him. It's like, I'd be mad too, So he decides right then and there, I've got to get this thing right. He's got to get his daughter out of there, and something had to change in his life. He needed to be a better father to his daughter. A friend. That's all I know about him, just a friend. An unknown hero invited Brian Welch to church one day. Who have you not invited because of an excuse? Who have you not asked to come to a youth event or come to camp or come to a retreat because you had something, oh, it's not the right time, oh, it's awkward, oh, I get it. We don't like having those awkward or weird conversations or whatever, but whose life are you potentially, is God asking you to be the element of changing by inviting them one time? You never know when somebody's on the end of the rope. You never know when somebody's had their last straw and that's all they can take and they're just looking for a way out. They're looking for an escape. They're looking for something, and all it would take is you saying, hey man, come check this out, come join me, It doesn't have to be anything weird. Like, just, hey, you want to come to church Sunday? Hey, you want to come to church Wednesday or whenever we have youth group? Like, just invite people. God's told us to, so why aren't we doing it? I'm not wearing shoes, so if I step on your toes, hopefully it doesn't hurt too bad. An unknown hero invited him to church. And Brian said, well, they seem like good people. I'll give it a try. Unknown, unnamed, an unknown friend. He didn't have a stage. He didn't have a spotlight. He didn't have the fame and the fortune. He didn't have any of that. You may not have you may not think you have a voice or an influence, but you never know who you talk to, what kind of connection or influence they may have. You never know if talking to one people may have a domino effect and people of hundreds or thousands of people's lives that you never knew possible if you would just be obedient and step out and talk to people about God and ask people to come, join you in your relationship with God. So this unknown friend, he was obedient to the promptings of the Holy Spirit and of God, and he invited somebody to church. Brian went to that church and he was loved by the people there. How many times do we have new people coming into our, this is my church. How dare you sit in my seat? Sorry. Yeah. I'll try to be careful. Why would I waste my time talking with somebody new when I have my friends I'm comfortable with? Why would I stop at, hanging out at the snack bar or at the pop station or whatever you guys may have at your group? Why would I step outside of my comfort zone to talk to somebody new? But you never know when you showing the love of God to somebody else. Maybe you didn't invite the person to church, but maybe you have that opportunity. Maybe God's saying, I want you to show my love to them. See, when the love of God comes into our life, it should change us, and it should cause us to love others with that same love so that others can experience that same love and that same change that we've experienced. So Brian went to church. He experienced the love of God there. He said, there must be something real here. He went home that night, the last of his drugs in his possession, said, God, you've got to save me. Because if you don't take this from me, I'm going to die. I mean, he was scared, man. He knew if he didn't give up the drugs, if he didn't, like, he was going to overdose, something bad was going to happen. He wanted to be a better father to his daughter. He wanted to let this love of God that he had experienced change him in a real way. God set him free radically from the drugs and gave him an overwhelming peace and the courage to walk away from his band and lifelong friends or family to follow Christ. How many of us have friends in here that might be dragging us down? Okay, I'm sure we've all had some at some point in time. Maybe they're not even somebody you'd consider a friend, but more of a family member. Maybe they're not your real relatives, but to you they're blood. To you they're one and the same. God may be giving you the courage right now, and you may feel something inside of you that's like, oh, I don't want to do that. If you ask God, He'll give you the courage to step away from harmful relationships you need to step away from. He left the band in February of 2005 and was later baptized in the Jordan River on a trip to the Holy Land. So it was really awesome. He went with his church and just experienced, got to walk where Jesus walked, and got to be baptized in the Jordan River. And then he began a solo project. He did an album that he put out called Brian Head Welch. For those of you who are into that kind of music, I highly suggest you check it out. It's really awesome. Basically, he took the music, the instrumental and everything that he had done with Korn, and he put it to Christian lyrics and put it to basically his testimony, his story, and everything that he had been going through. And he also did another one called Love and Death, another band called Love and Death. That's another great band to check out if you're into that kind of music. He started, being a youth evangelist rock star. He's preaching at, big youth conferences and Liberty University for their convocation, I think it was. But he did a I Am Second. That picture previous was a I Am Second video that he did. I encourage every single one of you guys to check that out. He tells a story about it. But it's just really awesome. Like he came out with some books. He wrote this book called Save Me From Myself. An awesome 5-6 years or so was going by where he was like, yes, I've stepped away in faith. I've left what God's called me to leave, and now I'm a rock star for the church. Woo! But it doesn't end there. You see, he had stepped away so that God could begin doing some healing and some forgiving in his heart, and so that he could go and seek forgiveness from others that he had hurt and wronged in the past. And what he didn't know is this whole time that he was away from the band, God was beginning to work on the bass guitarist of the band. They call him, I think it's Fieldy. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fieldy. And Fieldy ended up getting radically saved and set free from the drugs and party rock star lifestyle too. So Fieldy is in the band. He's trying to get right with God, and his bandmates are starting to open up, and they're starting to be more receptive to this whole relationship with God thing. And they're like, well, we don't quite believe, but let's get clean with you for our families, for our kids' sake. And so this whole time God's working in this band that Brian had left, and he had no idea, and God began to call him back to the band. God began to call him back to the band that he had left, and it didn't make sense. I mean, why would it? If you had lived your whole life with these friends, with these family, and they had you into the drugs and the alcohol and the party lifestyle and just steeped in sin, why would you want to go back to that? If God set you free, why would He set you free and then tell you, hey, I want you to go back there? But God tells us in His Word why. In Matthew 28:16, this is the Great Commission. It says, "Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw Him, they worshipped Him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority is in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So what's that say? He said, go into all of the youth groups. Wait. All of the churches, all of the safe places, that's what it says, right? It doesn't say all of the safe places. It doesn't say all of the places that there are already Christians there and everybody's approving of you being there. Wait a minute. See, growing up, my grandparents' religion taught me you don't go where the sick people are, you go where the healthy people are and you stay healthy. But the healthy don't need a doctor, the sick do. The hurting, the broken, they're the ones needing help, not the people who are already living that same lifestyle you are. Why are we always hanging out with each other and never going out? Why are we never going out to the places that might be different than us? That might be a little bit scary, that might be a little bit broken, a little bit jaded, a little bit torn. He fought and fought and fought. And after about a year and a half or so, he was actually going to be guest playing for a band called Red. I don't know if any of you guys know Red. Yeah. And happened to be on the same tour that Korn was playing on. And the guys reached out to him and said, "Hey man, come play a song with us." See, this whole time God was talking to him and working on him. God was working on the bandmates too, asking them to forgive him. God will do amazing things if you'll be obedient to him. He will do some amazing things. Bring healing in places you never thought possible. How many of us have been hurt by somebody that we think, I'll never be able to forgive that? How many of us have been hurt so bad, maybe nobody else even knows about it? Maybe nobody else, it's so bad you've never been able to tell anybody. And you think, God, how could I forgive that person? Well, just wait. Because he eventually did go back to the band. Like Moses, his excuses were pretty good, but God was calling him and he had to go. And from this, he came out with two things. He had this really awesome movie called Loud Crazy Love. I haven't watched it yet. I watched the trailer. I'm really excited about seeing it. And a book called Brian Head Welch with My Eyes Wide Open. And on the cover, it's got him with his eyes actually shut. And he's talking about the eyes of his spirit. He's talking about his spiritual eyes and God opening his eyes to see the opportunities he had. You see, he came back to the band and started playing with them again and started touring with them again. And now instead of being passed out in the back from drug overdose or having one PB&J and 4 days of nothing but drugs and alcohol, he's out front. He's out front talking to his fans, talking to the crowd about his story and how God's love changed his life and how it can change theirs too. He's reaching people that, the people at the pickets, God bless them, I love them. I was one of them at one point down in New Orleans with the picket signs yelling, "How dare you, you're going to hell for going into that concert," or, whatever the case may be. And, some people were receptive to that. Some people may, that may grab their attention. They may be a prodigal son. They may go, "Hey, let's talk to these people." But what about the people that make it into the concert? Who's reaching them? Who's reaching the people that are hurt and broken in that music, that poetic, lyrical, dark music speaks to them because they're hurting, they're broken, they're going through hell. And that's the realest they feel is when they're hearing those lyrics, when they're hearing that music. Who's speaking to them? God said, "I'm going to take somebody and use them." So now we've got Brian Head Welch and Fieldy, two awesome men of God that God's radically saved, set free from the drugs and the alcohol and all that. And they're in these concerts on a daily, whenever they're touring or whatever. talking to people after the concert, signing autographs, all that fun stuff, but they're talking to the kids, they're talking to the fans about how the love of God has changed their life.
Amen.
So that's all I got for you guys. I really, when it comes to Brian Head Welch, I really want you guys to know that none of us leaders here have it all together.
Right.
None of us are perfect. And just this week, I had a really crappy attitude. And I want to ask God to forgive me for that right now in front of you guys, because I was over here praying and asking God during worship, God, speak to me, show me what you want me to do, God. And I read Psalm 27, and towards the end of it, I'm reading through Psalms right now, and I happen to be on Psalm 27. And at the end of it, it says, wait on the Lord. Just wait. And I was so mad. I was so frustrated because I'm like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to, give me a sword to pick up. Let me start swinging. Give me some gloves to put on. I want to start fighting. And a lot of us are we've come to camp expecting God to, maybe help us to keep fighting the battles that we've been fighting this past year. Maybe we're fighting something, though, that God's saying, I've already won for you. If you'll just stop and rest in me, take up my word. Maybe God just wants you to get to know Him. And maybe He just wants to get to know you. Maybe He just wants that personal time with you. And He wants you to stop fighting so much and start resting in Him and start letting Him speak to your heart. Because who will go if nobody says go? If God doesn't tell you where to go, how do you know where to go? If God doesn't give you the words to speak, how do you know what to say? If you don't have direction or don't know what to do, how can you do what you don't know what to do? But if we take that time to let God speak to our hearts and give us that direction, and then be obedient in it. And God's not asking for you to be perfect and say, oh, thank you, God. Of course I'll, talk to that kid that's really annoying and nobody likes to talk to for a reason. Of course I'll talk to, Smelly. Let's be real, man. Like, we all got excuses, we all got issues, we all got stuff that, we don't want to do, and that may be the one thing God asked us to do. Will you do it? What excuses will you have? That God will go through the same thing that He's gone through with Moses and all of the prophets and everybody else and Brian Head Welch and me and everybody. So let's ask God right now. I'm just going to pray us out. I don't have anything else for us, but let's ask God right now. I want God to speak to you guys, to speak to your hearts. And, give us the courage, God, to be obedient and go. It already says in His Word to go, so you can't say He's not telling you to go. But maybe for you the question is, God, where are you sending me? Where do you want me to go? Is it my school? Is it my workplace? Wherever it may be, we need to be obedient in that, because God's done with the excuses. We don't have any that we can give Him that He hasn't heard already. So let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, I thank You for tonight, God. I pray that You would speak to our hearts, God. And use us in a mighty way, God. We never know when the one person we talk to is going to be a agent of change for thousands of people, God. And so we just ask You, God, to help us to be obedient in the little things, God, and let us trust You with the big things. In Your name I pray. Amen.